Thank you for joining me for my final portfolio presentation. I'm going to be assessing the leadership approach to a specific problem for the organization of Lucidity Festival. We are an organization that creates accessibility for deaf and disabled patrons at music festivals. This presentation will focus on the accessibility at Lucidity Festival, where we have been providing ASL services for 5 years. We've grown to provide more than just qualified ASL interpreters. We also have a deaf hub, a camp where the group can bond and be with like-minded people. Overall, Lucidity Festival has exceeded the standard for music festivals in current day means. However, there is always room to improve and increase the services. Our issue is a recognizable barrier for accessibility and participation into other areas of the event, further than just being a participant, enjoying the music, and going to workshops. Disabled people have much to offer and have tried to sign up for positions of responsibility and found a barrier in every department of Lucidity Festival. This paper will be mainly focusing on how to create systems to address the lack of accessibility in the event and create results for clear communication, doors of opportunity, and seats at the table. We aim to address, communicate, brainstorm, and problem solve as a team for how the organization can change to create a culture of participation and create space and tools for ADA participants to be as involved as they desire. The barrier to deaf access is not one that is intentional nor spiteful, but what we call the easy route. We call it the easy route because it's easier to say, oh, we don't have any accommodations, than it is to do the proper research planning it takes to create access and provide interpreters and opportunities for deaf people to participate with. Planning and having foresight on how a project can involve more deaf participation requires carving out a space for them at the table. A seat at the table is a quote inspired by Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm's words and work towards creating a more inclusive democracy, 2020. We believe this issue is happening globally and in all industries due to the lack of space carved out for disabled patrons to participate in projects and utilize their skills, knowledge, and expertise. Deaf people are still being seen as incapable, irrelevant, or just forgotten. Even when deaf people have applied for volunteer or work positions in the past, they may have been granted the position, but because no access was provided, they could not achieve what they set out to do, not because of lack of skill, but because of lack of voice in the process. Effective leadership provides opportunities for people to share their skills, knowledge, and expertise in problem-solving attempts. Organizational behavior theories that apply to this situation. Research into what drives, motivates, and determines behavior has been used to analyze problem behavior and trends in business. The purpose of understanding organizational behavior theories is to improve job performance, increase job satisfaction, promote innovation, and encourage leadership. The consequentialist theory most heavily weighs the overall outcome of the behavior and judging the person based on the outcome of their efforts, whereas virtue or duty-based theory weighs more heavily on perceiving the entire individual and their intentions rather than the impact of their behavior. Duty-based theory is based on what the person should or shouldn't do, instead of seeing the situation as a complex whole. In the case of ensuring ADA access to all of the patrons of an event, to the degree that they are able to participate in leadership positions, all three theories are at play in our decision-making process. The virtue-based theory will be used to evaluate the situation as a whole to see it does indeed have the best intention of offering full access. Yet the consequentialist theory allows us to look at the outcome of these intentions and see that they are not yet backed by enough supporting behavior to justify the value of inclusion. And lastly, the duty-based approach versus the legal obligation of the festival's duty to provide extra support to get ADA people placed at the table of making decisions for their peers at the event. The organizational issue identified as a barrier to disabled participation is both a legal and ethical concern for our organization and Lucidity LLC. The barrier is unethical in that it is unintentionally in conflict with Lucidity's core value of participation and immersion in the artistic process. By not having a system in place to allow deaf participants to volunteer, vend their wares, lead workshops, or have access to positions in the event that everyone else could have, it shows that they're set up for failure in their ability to include all groups. When companies do not have systems readily in place for disabled people to participate, they're engaging in discrimination. According to Trevino 2017, discrimination means treating people unequally because they are or appear to be different, which is assumptive and erroneous logic, and also illegal. It is particularly illegal to deny disabled people the chance to participate due to their disabilities and the lack of support for accommodations. Speaking about deaf people's challenges at music festivals, Bunbury 2021 states, for some deaf disabled individuals, participating in these events poses a number of difficulties that in turn results in them losing out on an experience. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 placed the onus on service providers to ensure their events are accessible for individuals that have sensory impairments. Deaf individuals fall into this category, making it a legal requirement, on request, for service providers to provide an ASL interpreter for individuals attending concerts. On top of these legal fines, discrimination lawsuits can be costly for employers, not simply in terms of legality and legal fees and damages and media coverage, which are examples from Trevino 2017, page 122. The organization can lose their reputation as well. If you're an individual accused of discriminating against another employee, the least you'll endure is an investigation. And a festival that is built on core values of community, shared experiences, and inclusion, this would not be something that does Lucidity well, at least to have in the public media. Leadership has a challenging role in the face of potential cases of accused discrimination in their event. One way to act in advance to beat the discriminatory situations before they happen is to create a culture that celebrates diversity and is aware of disabled people's needs and how to accommodate them. So in order to do this, we must discuss how the need for change is addressed is indicative of the outcome. And that starts with planning for communicating the address of the issue with leadership. No one is people are negatively inspired by threats. However, crafting the message to your listener, as suggested by CSU Global 2022 lecture, it is important to think of who you are speaking to, your audience. In this case, the very busy leadership of Lucidity Festival LLC. The change I'm hoping to propose is a bottom-up or customer-driven change that I am responsible for liaisoning, communicating, and integrating the ADA team into. Knowing that the leadership team is overworked, underpaid, and passion-driven is helpful for crafting our message. A key challenge is to promote a positive climate. Negativity can create problems as it often sparks an internal dialogue that distracts the listener. This is from A. Hagman 2017. Our answer to this struggle will be strategically simplifying the message delivered to leadership. Having our facts sorted out and a brainstorm of potential solutions ready will ensure the team that we are respecting their time and we're ready to problem solve, not just problem present. As a change leader, I have influence over how the issue is perceived, addressed, and solved. But because I am not affected as significantly as other disabled patrons, I need the feedback and buy-in of those I am representing. Smith 2019 suggests to be real, open, and honest about the situation, time marker 334, and ask what they would do about it. Maybe even create more buy-in when they come to the same conclusion that I came to, time marker 358, which is why I have a team of deaf and disabled stakeholders who serve as a counsel to me in times of decision-making process. When faced with an organizational issue, a leader's emotional intelligence can determine success of the outcome as well as the stakeholders' response to the situation presented. If a leader is curious and compassionate to how the stakeholders experience the issue and what they want in the problem-solving process, this creates easier buy-in for the solution once implemented. It has been said that emotional intelligence contributes to effective leadership by focusing on 5 essential elements of leadership effectiveness: development of collective goals and objectives, instilling in others an appreciation of the importance of work activities, generalizing and managing enthusiasm, confidence, optimism, cooperation, and trust, encouraging flexibility in decision-making and change, and establishing and maintaining a meaningful identity for an organization. This is according to George 2020. With this criteria in mind for an emotionally intelligent leader, we shall assess their leadership emotional intelligence levels as observed and assessed by the ASL team leadership, Bobby Cox and myself. By using 2 different people's perspectives, one deaf and male, and one hearing and female, we are able to get a wider scope of the leader's perceived EQ. Lucidity Festival LLC is co-owned by a board of members in a horizontal topology. However, Jonah Haas is the face of the company and visionary leader driving the project's trajectory. We shall assess his EQ as he is the public face of the company and interfaces with our team enough to assess. Channels that show evidence of Jonah's EQ include his online and digital communication, personal communication, and subtle messaging deducted through actions. In digital communication, Jonah has grandiose ideas, compassionate language, which is shown through the website and vision creation, as well as public posts on social media platforms, encouraging participation and inclusion in events. The in-person communication we have witnessed took place both on Zoom and on site during the event. In these situations, the stakes were high due to the quick-moving nature of the communication and the ever-changing factors at play in the scenarios. The communication ranged from passive-aggressive to directly dismissive, making his way the only way, and reducing attempts at innovative problem-solving from his subordinates. The subtle messaging through his actions seemed to show a sincere dedication to the core values of the company and projects that are supported, and response to conflicts of interest show that his problem-solving skills use the core values as a basis for decision-making. However, his lack of self-regulation and social skills used in the face of in-person conflict shows a need for training and practice with emotional intelligence skills in times of high-stress crises. When addressed about the additional services and access needed by our department, we were pushed off to another department head to navigate the issue, so we didn't see much of his passion applied towards our project. The suggestions we have for our leader, Jonah Haas. Venera 2019 observed that CEOs are hired for their intellect and business expertise, but they're fired for a lack of emotional intelligence. In light of this, we would suggest the following skills and tools to Jonah Haas, leader of Lucidity Festival, to remember and apply in face of conflict and high-tension crises during the event, and all other interactions as well. The 3 core skills suggested include social skills, self-awareness, and self-regulation skills. These skills all work hand in hand, and one cannot operate smoothly without the other. The first skill applied is self-awareness, which is the ability to recognize one's own feelings, emotional biases, and reactions to certain events and feelings. The second is self-regulation, knowing when one's emotions are leading their reactions and learning to pause, regulate that feeling, and respond with grace and consideration, even if it means saying, "I don't know how to solve that problem right now," which is suggested by TEDx 2018. And the third being social skills, the know how, when, and to whom to say it to. These 3 skills are integral and need to be practiced in every interaction in order to become instinctual and second nature. Emotionally intelligent leaders know how to engage with staff and stakeholders to help them feel not only seen, heard, and understood, but also safe to bring up new ideas and challenge the status quo. Because employee engagement begins and ends with leaders, Madison 2018, Jonah is best off employing these skills with his team and curating an environment where staff feel comfortable speaking up on their innovative ideas and problem solving. To achieve this, Jonah must be in control of his own emotional responses to problems and instills trust in his staff that he is open to hearing new ideas. Another tool suggested is the 16 count box breathing, which can be helpful in the moment to help him pause. Gates 2018 can provide more information on 16 count box breathing. Another helpful tool would be the Compassionate Curiosity Framework, shared by Quam Christian and Ruba 2020. These steps are as follows. Step 1, acknowledge and validate emotions. Step 2, get curious with compassion. Step 3, engage in joint problem solving. Changes and updates we will need to make in order to address this issue include setting aside planning time, resources, and dedication to creating positions appropriate for disabled participants to join, and creating systems that will allow them to participate in all roles. One of these systems can be to implement the new role of an accessibility advisor. ADA 1990 law specifies the use of advisors who can invite participation of individuals with various disabilities early on to help with site selection and other concerns. ADA Law 2020. For us, this would be how positions need to be adjusted and accommodated in order to allow deaf participants to fulfill them. Having a position dedicated to addressing accessibility issues will ensure that the participants have a method of addressing their concerns, feeling heard, and important. From the simulation, I've learned that effective leaders manage crises by having transparency with their stakeholders, communicating the facts of the situation, leaving their emotions out of it, and focusing on what they are doing currently to fix the crises, not what they did do to create the crises, though accountability is incredibly important. Employees in the organization are the best source of innovation. For us, this expands to all of our stakeholders being the best source of innovation. Deaf people know best how to create systems that will help them access the positions they are trying to access. Giving them a seat at the table will help us to create innovative solutions for the problem of barriers to accessibility. Another perspective that is helpful is being open to innovating everything: the processes, the positions, the language, the communication style, which is most important when discussing the barriers of accessibility for deaf people. There are multiple ways to encourage innovation in a workspace, including having a clear space with no distractions, having this be a group workspace where they can ask each other questions and bounce brainstorming ideas off of each other. Also, one could use a suggestion box to allow for anonymous, innovative systems to be suggested, and overall, including open communication for all people to suggest their ideas. Thank you for joining my presentation. In summary, the issue that we're addressing is a lack of positions available that deaf people can participate in at Lucidity Festival. Instead of just offering interpreters, we are creating new systems in place to allow deaf people to tell us what more they may need in order to be accommodated and fill these positions and share their diverse range of skills, knowledge, and expertise into the festival. Thank you so much for joining.